unfortunately, for those listening that think they're doing a great job because they're discounting everything and doing everything cheap, like you're not providing a good life for the people that work for you, and you're not
Mhm.
having the money in the account so that you can support, sponsor community events. If I'm going to be here for free, I'll just go home because I can be home for free. I've just recently kind of come across that realization of there's a lot of great marketing companies that get a bad rap because they want this ROI on return, but they're just not capturing the sale, right?
Mm.
Or you're bringing me bad leads.
All right, welcome everyone to another episode of the Lift Your Shop podcast. I'm Kelsey Outram of Lift Auto Repair Marketing, and today we have another amazing guest. We have Jimmy Purdy, based out in Paso Robles, California, owner of Shifting Gears Auto Repair, along with the podcast host of the Gearbox Podcast. So, Jimmy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Yeah, so
reaching out.
I know you usually like you're the host of these things, so I'm appreciative of you coming on. I know you come on a few other podcasts, and I thought you'd be a really interesting guest for our
Interesting is a good word for it, for sure.
for our audience to chat with. But I mean, to get us started, I mean, what got you into automotive in general?
Wow, we're going in the Wayback Machine.
Oh yeah, we're going to the beginning.
You know what? I think a lot about that, and I'm like, why did I put myself in this position? And all the knowledge, right? You start accumulating and all these things. Like I recently hired an apprentice, and so she's kind of asking me different things, and
Awesome.
and and I know, like, you don't really sit down and like write down all the stuff, but like when someone asks
Yep.
you, you start like coming up with all this information, and then we were talking about like a Ford 8-inch versus the Ford 9-inch and stuff like that. I'm like, and I just started thinking, like, man, the amount of stuff I have in my head, if I would have used this for a different purpose, like maybe I'd be, building rocket ships or something like that, right? Like, no, I mean, I don't think I'd have it any other way. And I think it started with my dad always buying projects that didn't
Mm,
run, right? Like for Christmas, I'd get like a quad or a dirt bike, and it was literally in a milk crate, right? Like someone's project that they tore down, they couldn't figure out how to put it back together. It's like, here, Merry Christmas, we got to put this together. And I'm like, so mad, like
yeah.
Christmas morning, like the last day, I just want to go ride my motorcycle with all my friends around, back
Yeah.
when the internet wasn't so big. It's like just want to get on my motorbike and go ride around with all my buddies, and
Oh.
I'm sitting here building this thing in the garage, and it definitely turned out to be a positive thing because you need that skill. And I think that's what keeps me back into it, is realizing the more I learn in this, the more complex problems, whether it's even like problem as simple as something in your home that you need to fix, right? Like I notice a lot of auto technicians are able to fix a lot of things in their home, right? Like they're just creative. You can figure it out, right?
Yep.
But then even like just problems with life in general, you just handle things a little differently because your brain gets rewired over the years of like having to take something apart, wait a few days, and then make sure you know how to put it back together, right? And
Mm.
that's just a big thing. It's like, wow, every year goes by, I feel like I get better with utilizing that skill outside of the shop. And that's a big thing that I think it takes a long time, right? But a decade later, you're realizing like, wow, like I'm definitely a lot smarter than I was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned building rocket ships. I mean, technicians in the auto repair field, I mean, they do so many different things. I'm sure they could build a rocket ship if they really wanted
Yeah.
to and tried. I
Yeah.
mean,
The
that,
pay's a little different, but
yeah, just a little bit. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, like yeah, that starting from a young age of just having to fix something. I mean, that not the first time I've heard kind of peaking of interest there. But what then started actually like the going into the business of auto repair?
well, I think everyone wants to own a business. We all
Hmm.
have a little bit of entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Yeah.
Um, Helping the community. So the town, Paso Robles, the shop we own the shop in, it's the town I graduated high school in, right? And I mean, I went to auto shop class, and the high school is about a quarter mile up the road from our shop.
Hmm.
So being able to have an impact in the community that we grew up in is amazing, right? Um, to go back to your question, I wanted to do it better, right? So the shop I worked at, there was nothing really wrong with it, but I knew there was things that we could change to
Yep.
have a better impact, right? To provide a better life for the employees that work there, that, give back better to the community. And by doing it, you got to make more money, right? Unfortunately, for those listening that think they're doing a great job because they're discounting everything and doing everything cheap, like you're not providing a good life for the people that work for you, and you're not
Mhm.
having the money in the account so that you can support, sponsor community events. So step one, you got to make money. And by doing that, you got to learn, how do I do this without just flat out ripping people off, right? Because there's that other side, right, where you just try to get, what do they say? You slaughter the sheep instead of shearing it, right? Like,
Mm.
you can only slaughter it once. So you got to learn those numbers and learn how to run a business. And that has nothing to do with fixing cars.
Yeah.
That's a and that's a huge learning curve, you know?
Yep. No, I 100% agree. And I'm glad you brought up financials. And is that something that you kind of understood right away as when
No,
you
not even
started
a
the
little bit,
business?
man. I still don't quite understand. Do we ever fully understand them? I don't know. Maybe there's a time, but I think you have to constantly just look at them almost daily, right?
Mm,
And just always look at the KPIs and figure out, you know, what is your shop worth per hour and how do you make it worth more, you know?
yeah.
And leadership goes right into that, because you want your guys to be productive, but you can't just go crack the whip and say, hey, so you're only doing 6 hours a day, I need 8, so do 8 and walk away. Like, it just doesn't work that way, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's another learning curve for me, is as I continue on. And that all stems from starting to look at the numbers, right? And you start understanding them a little bit more. But no, day one, it was, um you know, from what I learned, is like, you get a part and you throw $20 on top of that part, and you made a little bit of money on your part, and then you just do your labor and call it a day, and you don't look anything on the backside. You're just like, oh, that job should take me about 3 hours, you know, and you add a couple bucks on top of the part, and you're like, okay, I'm making money, right?
Mm,
Um, it's wild. It's wild learning that process and seeing the difference between what you think is right and what is actually right, and how boring it is to do it the right way. I
yeah. No.
guess, right, like, because you see a car coming in, you're like, oh, that's you know, transmissions, right? It was, oh, that's
Yep.
a $5,000 job, awesome. If I can get like 10 of those, man, we're rolling. And then at the end of the month, there's no money, and you're like, but wait, I did 10 transmission jobs. That's like $50,000. Like, I should be rolling in it right now, right? And
Yeah.
there's, you know, $1,500 in the bank account at the end of the month. You're like, wait, but I thought I did really well, you know? So then the next month you add a little bit more and see what happens, and it doesn't make it any better. And you're like, I'm doing something wrong here. But it's like the wild, wild west, like everything coming in, you're just excited. You're like, oh, let me get the next one, get the next one. Then you start learning, like, oh, it's all about numbers, and it gets kind of boring. But then you start seeing the bank account grow. So then that's kind of exciting.
Yeah, that's not boring anymore. When that starts going up. So is it like was it a gradual process, or was it like there was a moment in time where like suddenly you're like, hey, the bank account is not reflecting what I believe our business is doing, and that was like, boom, I need to understand these numbers better. Like what was kind of that
Mm,
experience for you?
the aha moment. I don't know if I really ever necessarily had that. I think my ego just always thought every year that I could figure it out on my own, and keep making it better. So there's a lot of struggle for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, day one, kind of taking over the shop, I had $5,000 in the bank account, right?
Mm,
And the shop owner was selling the shop, and we made an agreement that I would double his salary. I would, you know, the take over, assume the lease. He would stay on and as kind of mentoring, and then I did an asset purchase of all his equipment. So we came up with a number. I think it was like 60,000. I think what we did on the asset purchase, and then I doubled his salary. So weekly, I was paying him 3,000.
mm,
And then I had the lease, and I had 5,000 in the bank account. So when I wrote the first lease for the building, it was a $2,500 lease. So month one, I went from 5,000 to 2,500, and that's all I had, and it was like game on, right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, I don't know what I was thinking. I was way more motivated than I am right now, and I'm a pretty motivated guy today. So I definitely, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I think they call it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I'll make it work. And
Yeah.
so, and I did it the wrong way, which we mostly do. And I tried to, instead of trying to increase my sales or build more value, I tried to find everything as cheaply as possible, right? To try to save money. How do they say that? It's like stepping over a dollar to pick up a dime, right? Like,
Mm,
I was trying to like build wealth by saving money, which is
yep.
impossible, right? Like, I've heard that by so many different people out in the world with entrepreneurs. Like, you don't make money, or you don't build wealth by saving money, and that's what I was trying to do, right?
Mhm.
There's like, I negotiated my labor. Like, when guys, I'd hire them, I try to get them in as cheaply as possible, and it's crazy. It's really crazy to think back on that stuff. It's like, man, I was just really not well educated.
I
Just
mean, we learn as
yeah.
we go, and I mean, at the same time, I understand when a business owner starts, it's like you only have so much in the bank, and so it's like it's very intimidating to be like, I'm going to invest extra dollars to get a slightly better person, when I'm like, I know I can at least afford this person, and so kind
Yeah.
of like making that balance and with individuals, but I think yeah, I mean, I've not the first time I've heard this in terms of like people wish that yeah, when I hired on my first person. I wish I like had just budgeted more for it and then had like sometimes yes people get lucky and they're like yeah it was a rock star that I was willing to, I could pay $20 an hour and I was like oh my goodness this is amazing, but not often is that the story.
Hindsight's always 2020.
Yeah.
But also if you don't have the money, you just don't have the money.
Yep.
Like
No.
that's the bottom line. Like if it's not there, it's not there. And if you think you know better and you don't, like you just don't know what you don't know. And
Hmm.
that's where I was. And as the years progressed and clicked by, you start listening to more podcasts, you start watching more YouTube videos, you just get more embedded with the community around, and as the community people around you get better, you start realizing you're doing things the wrong way. So you slowly make tweaks and changes, and you get better tax people, better CPAs, and you start realizing like, oh, there's a lot more on the back end that I need to worry about than on the front end. But also, there's a whole lot of stuff on the front end that I'm screwing up as well. Instead of hiring someone just to answer the phones, like, no, you need like a legit, service advisor. Like,
Mhm.
and for me, it was like, oh, I just need someone to answer the phone. If I just have someone answer the phone and write down the message, I'll just get back to it. And I thought
Mhm.
that was it. Like, that's the bee's knees right there. I got it all figured out now, right? It's like
Yep.
so wrong. So I don't think there was an epiphany for me. There was a lot of great information that's put out there that I had to really work through. And it was really realistically what really kind of stuck with me and made sense with me, right? There's a lot of talk about like the 300% rule and like doing digital vehicle inspections. And I think
Mhm.
us as a transmission shop, I knew we were missing a lot because they would come in, we would do the transmission repair, and then they'd come back, hey, my brakes are making noise, this is leaking, and they were
Mhm.
upset about it. How come you didn't tell me about it? It's like, well, we're a transmission shop. We specialize in transmissions,
Mhm.
and that was like that was probably a big aha. Like, okay, we
Yeah.
really need to make sure we're inspecting these vehicles. And as soon as we did that, it was like night and day. Our revenue increased. I don't think our profits increased, but we definitely started having more cash flow because we were getting more jobs. And then I could say, oh, I could hire somebody to do brakes and do oil changes, and because I don't need a specialty guy only focused on doing transmissions. So, and that's shifted our gears, right? With and and
I see what
and
you did there.
yeah, into the next years, and that's what we've always consistently used that name for, as well as we keep changing our processes, but we always have to keep shifting gears to make sure that we're staying on top of the game, really.
Yeah, no, and obviously, I mean, I know you guys kind of embody your brand, which is super awesome. Was that always the plan when you named the shop that
No,
way?
no, it wasn't.
Okay, well, what? How did you come up with the name?
Uh, Transmission and differentials. That's all I
Yeah.
wanted to do. I wanted to be
Okay.
the best builder there was, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm like, what's better than that than if shifting gears and um yeah, there was a few things I saw online that I really liked as far as like using that name. There was an old motorcycle shop in town that was called Shifting Gears. And I don't remember if you remember the old magazine. It was an old motorcycle magazine, Shifting Gears. Anyway, I was a
Yeah.
little worried that was gonna get kind of it crossed in the mix. And
Uh,
every once in a while someone comes up and they're like, "Hey, do you work on motorcycles?" I'm like, "Really?" But I just really like the name, and it just like really made sense with like gears, obviously doing differential
yep.
rebuilding and transmission rebuilding, so I let it go. And then as we pivoted to general auto repair, I thought really hard about a name change, and then it came to me. I'm like, well, actually, because we're shifting gears, like, and everybody says that everywhere. I'm like, there's a
Yep.
lot of brand recognition in that. I think we're just gonna let it ride.
Yep. No, I 100% agree because again, it doesn't. Not like the average day person would be like, oh, shifting gears probably only means transmission. Like, no, it'll just be like, no, it relates to automotive and auto repair, and it says auto repair in the name, and so that makes a lot of sense to me. So
Well,
I
you
think
know
it's
what's
catchy
you
and
know what's
smart.
wild too is like, and you've probably heard this. You've probably interviewed plenty of people that say this. When they have an auto repair shop, they'll come in for a brake job or whatever they're coming in for, and then they're like, oh, you do oil changes, or vice versa. Like you come in for an oil change, it's like, oh, I just had my brakes done by ABC down the shop or down the street. Well, we do that. Oh, I had no idea. So it doesn't matter what name you come to or whatever. People are just people, and it doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
And I put way too much weight in trying to make sure that I had the proper name to bring people in, and it just wasn't. I put way too much weight in it. It was like just utilize what you have and make it work. Like get creative about it. And then
Yeah.
that's what I did, and it's like it's worked out so far. I don't know if in the future there's a change, but probably not.
No,
because there's
I think
more
it's
things,
solid.
there's more important things to worry about. You know what I mean? Like everyone always like it's just wild. All the stories I hear about, oh, I didn't know you do that, or I didn't know you did that. I thought you were only did this. Is like so it doesn't matter.
Yep. No, I mean, we get it on the marketing side too. It's very like, hey, oh wait, you guys do that too? It's like that makes me reflect on like I need to do a better job of branding. Then it's like if there's a question on like even a basic service that we do, that means I'm not doing a good enough job of making sure everyone knows exactly what we do. And so, I mean, I welcome the question, but at the same time, I know it pushes me to be like, I need to do a better job of making sure everyone is informed. But
And I think that's a smarter way to look at it than to like look back and say, well, maybe I should change the name of my entire company.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's not the right answer for that. Like no, you need to work and do the boring stuff, right? Like you need to do the branding and do all that stuff instead of just doing this big huge name change that thinks it's going to fix everything.
yeah, no, especially like I mean, in the SEO world, just I mean, changing your name doesn't magically make you better. Unfortunately, I mean, yes, there is weight in the name, like in naturally within the maps, but I mean, there's way more power. I mean, and if you just look at search types, I mean, the brand search has gone up so high in terms of just like, say, someone types in auto repair versus typing in shifting gears auto repair. Like that level of difference has come way closer down to neutral versus before, which kind of shows the importance of brand. But you mentioned a few things, and I just to give the groundwork for people, when you purchased the shop, the how many lifts were you at, and like has it changed since then, or is it still kind of the same size? Just so I have a
Oh
few
yeah,
follow-up
yeah, yeah,
questions on
yeah.
top of
Let's,
that.
let's paint a picture, huh?
Yeah.
So a lot's changed. A lot of rough waters, let's call it. So when it started, there was four lifts. It was about a 3,000 square foot shop.
Hmm.
Kind of, it was in the community for 42 years.
Oh
So
wow.
it was well used.
Uh-huh.
Let's put it that way.
Well used. I like
Well
that phrase.
used. Yes, very, very well used. Everything. When I took it over, there was only two operational lifts.
Mm,
And so I got rid of two and bought two brand new ones so that each bay, it was four roll up doors, so four bays. So I
yep.
want to make sure they had two. So we had four operational lifts when I took over. Yeah, it worked, right? It had everything we needed. A lot of dated stuff, right? So slowly we started kind of changing equipment out. What the issue was is the building was shared by a business next door, and when we took over in 2016, officially changed it in 2017, 2018, the building got bought, and it got bought by our neighbors that shared the building. They came down and said, "Hey, your rent's going to 3,800." So they almost doubled our rent, day one. And so
Okay.
at that point in time, we had to make a pretty critical decision. Do we stay here? And we kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like they wanted
Yeah.
the whole building. There was not going to be an extended long-term lease. There was no option to sell out, later on. It was basically like, you guys are going to be here. They wanted a triple net. So like they wanted to fix it up and then they wanted to boot us, right? Like I saw what they would. So we found this other building that we're in now currently, which is about a half mile down the road, which was pretty convenient.
Mm.
It's 5,400 square feet, so it was quite a jump, but the cost was the same, so it just financially made
Oh,
sense,
yep.
right? And we grew into it pretty quickly. As of today, we've been in this building 3 years, and we just signed the lease for the building in the parking lot across the way, which is another 4,000 square feet.
Oh, congratulations. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so it's worked out really well. The buildings are brand new, they're clean. We're able to basically take a clean slate and make it exactly how we want it. I don't know if that's a good thing because I don't know what I'm doing, but it's nice to be able to set things up and kind of move stuff around and start getting the flow for it. Right, this another other one that I'm setting up now. Like I've got a little better idea than I did when I first moved in here, so it's going to be a little bit better than this one, a little more efficient, a little more production. So I'm excited to see how that works out. So it's just the progression, right?
Hmm.
Um, Instead of being so focused on getting it right the first time, I've realized like just make the mistakes and then you can do it again.
Yeah,
Figure it
but
out.
for sure. And so, and then obviously, I know you mentioned you started off as transmission. So when did the shift happen? The shift in gears happen to being a
Mhm.
general auto repair shop instead? Did it happen when the location moved and you figured that's when I'm going to do it, or did it
It
happen
was it was
sooner?
pretty much day one when I took over. I mean, it
Oh,
was
okay.
I was pushing pretty hard back in like 2013 and 14 with the old owner to start doing more of that. And I kind of took that upon myself. And I don't know if I'd give myself the title of like the shop manager or the general manager because it was really old school ran, right? Like um, there was no payroll. Everyone got paid cash. It was everything under the books. There was no
Mm,
official titles. People came and go as they please. Show up at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, and
yeah.
it was very old school, very 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 old school. That was my background. Was, hey, if you want to crack a beer at 1 o'clock, go ahead, man. It's no big deal. Hey, you guys want to go down to the bar and have some drinks at lunch? And I mean, it was like 1970s auto shop to a T, right? Like,
Yep.
e- yeah, it was.
Kind of where all the stereotypes came from. It was that.
It was the stereotypical shop.
Yep.
Other than the fact of the owner was just the nicest, most charismatic guy you'd ever meet, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
People come back screaming, and by the time they left, they were hugging him and giving him a kiss on the cheek. It was like I do not understand. To this day, I don't know how he did that. Like he was just that guy, right? And everyone in the
Wow.
community loved him, and so yeah, it was a stereotypical place, and that was kind of my background where
And
I started.
so, and it sounds like this. I mean, this previous owner was pretty well liked, but then you decided to change the name. It sounds like. So what?
Yeah,
But
so the name was so the whole thing with the name, it was automatic transmission service of Paso Robles. So it was very
gotcha.
very transmission. And so the
Transmission
pivot,
focus.
yeah, the pivot to get more general auto repair but still stay a transmission shop, that's where the name change came in. And my background as far as technical is I started as a smog technician when I graduated high school. I had my smog license right out of high school and I worked at a smog shop. So I really started more on that side of the industry than transmissions. So I got really good with, I got all my ASCs, my master tech back then right out of high school. And so I learned a lot about General Auto and the smog program and the emissions, even though I don't like the smog program and I probably will never get back into it in California, the science behind it just blew me away. I love sitting
Mm,
in class and learning how the catalytic converter works and how all these emissions work. And it was like the chemistry behind it was like, this is pretty cool. I had no idea what was going on, right? So
yeah.
that's where I started. And then getting into transmissions, it was how do I find the most needed or the most specialty thing in the whole vehicle? Like, what is it that transmissions? Like, that's the thing everybody stays away from. Nobody wants anything to do with. So that's what I
Mm,
want to learn. And I had the opportunity to it, so I dove right in. I mean, I never was like promoted in quotes as far as like, hey, I'd like you to start doing this. One day the builder had one too many the night before or whatever. He didn't show up for work, and there was a unit on the bench, and I said, "Hey, I'll tear it down. Oh, let's just wait for him to get here." And I was like, I just went over to my toolbox and tore it down, tore it apart, and said, "Hey, I need these parts." And he's like, "All right." And he ordered it up. I put it back together, and it didn't work. So I had to pull it back out and tear it back apart again, and that was a process for a long time, right?
uh-huh.
And but it was at the end of the day, I had it installed and it didn't work. And he's like, "All right, well." When he gets here in the morning, I'll have him tear it back apart. I'm like, well, you are. Like, so I stayed there till like 11. It was midnight before I had that thing back on the bench, torn apart. I don't think I left the shop till 2 a.m. Right. And I
Wow.
found what I did wrong. I reassembled it and had it ready to go in the morning. Got there in the morning at like 5:30 or 6 before anybody else put it back in, and it was working. And then, by the time they all got there at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever, when they got there, I already had it road tested, ready to go. And he's like, "Oh, it's already done." I'm like, "Yep." Little did you know I had like 6 hours of like time that not only was I not paid for, but it was like through the middle of the night. But that wasn't
Mm,
the first time I did that, right? There was multiple nights being there till 2 or 3 in the morning, taking a transmission in and out of a vehicle 3, 4, 5 times until I finally found what I did wrong and put it back in. I didn't have all the forums that you have now, right? And all the stuff that you can reach out to. I just had to tear it apart and be like, what did I do wrong, right? Like, where did I? And that's how I learned.
that's amazing. I mean, you sound like the dream employee for the owner. So it's like, oh my goodness, I came in and it's already done and taken care of. I thought it was gonna be this stressful day. And
Yeah, I thought I'd get paid a little more, but there was never a bonus or anything extra in the paycheck. But now looking back, it's like that was all for me, right?
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
that was my growing, and I needed to do that. And I don't think you could ever convince anybody to do that kind of work and say, hey, this is really going to benefit you later. But for me, the anxiety and the stress and like, I need to know how to do this. Like, I just, even if I went home, I wasn't going to go to sleep. So I might as well just
Mm.
stay here and figure it out.
Yeah, but that to me is a really strong straight trait, like that you were born to be an entrepreneur in a sense of like you needed to like see something through to completion on your own time. Like that
hmm
that's like again, not the average employee is not going to do that. They just clock in, get the work done, hopefully work as hard as they can,
You
clock
know what the
out, I'm
negative
done.
side about that is, though, is that's how I expect, that's my expectation of anybody else.
Mhm.
And that's been a learning curve too, right? Like, that's not, I can't have that expectation for everybody.
Yep,
And in the
everyone's not
early
wired.
years, that's what I figured. I just assumed that everybody was wired like that. And that's what, anybody that I hired, that's what they should do.
Mhm.
And when I started realizing that's not what they're going to do, it was a lot of frustration for me, right? It's like, just get it done. Well, I'll just do it tomorrow. What do you mean you do it tomorrow, dude? Get it done, right? Like, so yeah, that comes with a little bit of negative.
Yeah, yeah, no, man, absolutely, completely understand that. Now I'm gonna circle back again to because I know
Yeah.
obviously the transmission shop was there for a long time. Community understood it as a transmission shop. How did you go about teaching customers that now it's different? Like, hey, we do everything, and like this is
Oh
what we're.
man, good question. You come up with good questions.
Well, I
I was
appreciate
listening to a lot of your other podcasts, and you always have a way of like getting some good questions out.
it.
Um,
Well, I'm grateful.
that was a lot of what they call firing customers. A lot of that.
Yeah,
It was a lot of coming in and hey, can you take a look at this real quick? Hey, can you come take a ride with me? And that's like that old community, that old owner kind of
yep,
tie where someone would just show up. Hey, I got this weird noise. Can you come take a ride with me? Sure, no problem. Hop in the car and they're gone.
yep.
Right? 15, 20 minutes. Everyone's standing around like, so what do we do next? Oh, we have to wait for him to get back so we have some direction of what car we're supposed to even work on, right?
Hmm.
Drove me crazy. So, well, because you're standing there, right, with
Yeah,
your hands, and there's no workflow, there's nothing written down, it's all in the head, and so we're just waiting for him to get back. That makes zero money, by the way, because it was this free test drive, this
yep,
free, quick diagnostic, and getting the scan tool out and checking codes for free, and it was just a lot of that. So, one of the big things I remember is I changed the office. That was day one. I got in there and I gutted the office out. It was this. You'd walk in, there was one little metal desk in the middle. It was what was the size of it? About 15 by 10,
hmm
just a little 150 square foot office. And there was one metal desk in the middle, one fluorescent light up top, and that was it. Just like a dark, dimly lit
wow.
little. Is that painting kind of a picture?
Yeah, no. I'm picturing like
Right,
almost like a prison cell, but
a little bit. I think that's like 9 by 9 or 8 by 8, right?
yeah. Oh, that's
Um,
square. There you go.
but I mean, it worked, right? And there was
Yeah.
like a board on the back where the schedule was. So there was this big whiteboard. So he'd write down what was coming in, and
Oh,
that was the process. And so the day one I got in there, I put all new lights in, made it bright, painted it, made it white, clean. Walk in, it was like, whoa, it's bright in here. Put a nice big wood, like a Costco desk in, like a nice fancy oak, So you walk in, you're like, oh, this looks nice in here. Little
yeah.
counter, put a little pony wall. And I remember someone would walk in and say, "Oh man, I don't think I'm gonna be able to afford this place anymore." I was like, "Yeah, that's the idea." Right.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
I didn't say that, but it's like, it's
Yeah.
like you look at him, you're like, kind of part of you was like, "Oh no, am I making the right thing?" But also, I'm like, you know what? No, that's exactly why I did this because this is what I need. I need you to understand when you come in here, you're gonna have to spend some money, right? Like, no, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna take care of you. Like, you're gonna be taken care of. The car's gonna be fixed. I'm trying to improve the service, but you're gonna pay for it. Like, that's the
Yeah.
bottom line. There is no walking in and taking anybody here for free. Like, if I'm gonna be here for free, I'll just go home because I can be home for free.
Yeah.
That was like kind of like day one, my mentality, my thought. It's like I need to make sure if you're gonna come in here, like you're gonna spend some money, so let's make it look like that. Let's make it look like this is an establishment you go to spend money. Um, yeah, that was like my thought process.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So then did you have to sort of teach the technician to be like, hey, we need to look for everything now, instead of just like, we're not just a transmission shop. Like,
Mm,
was that process pretty immediate or was it kind of a
no, that
gradual?
was a very, very, very long. I think I'm
Mm.
still I'm still doing that to this day. I think just hiring technicians that weren't like transmission specialists, that
Mm,
was like the big pivot because they would just naturally start finding stuff. As
yeah.
far as like inspections, and like the DVIs, the digital vehicle inspections and stuff like that, I don't think that really came until 3 or 4 years down the road.
Yep. I figured.
And we're really still working on that today. I mean, I think, excuse me, if you have that process, you should be working on it, monthly, if not weekly, with your
Yep.
team, right? So I think that's an ever evolving kind of process for the inspections. But it definitely was, vehicles came in and they had transmission problems. My thought was, I don't want this thing leaving and then coming back upset. So a lot of the processes and systems that I put in place was to fix problems, not really make the business better, if that makes sense. Like I
Mm,
wasn't actively trying to increase revenue or trying to use that process to make more money. It was, I have a lot of people coming back upset because they spend 5 or 6 grand on a transmission and then their wheel bearings are bad, right?
mm,
Or they think the transmission's bad and it's a misfire in the engine, right? And so we'll just quote a transmission and then they go somewhere else and they're like, "Hey, so I got it fixed for $500 and you said I needed a new transmission." It's like we weren't looking at the rest of the vehicle, so I was just trying to do it to stop the bleeding, right? Like
yep.
I just wanted no more problems. So that was like my process to begin with. And then I realized, oh wow, this is actually like making our shop better. So let's figure out how to make this better. But from the day one, it was like, okay, guys, we need to look at everything. Like, and I remember the first kind of inspection we had, it was just written down on paper. I just was like, these are the things that people are coming back with problems. So I want to make sure you're looking at the rear end. I want to make sure you're looking at scan tool data. I want to know if there's any misfires. Like, and I remember just writing it down, and I would hand them out on a clipboard on like a piece of note paper, and I was like, I want you to check these things. And that was like day one, my very first like vehicle inspection, right?
Yeah, no, and I think that's so wise because again, people are under that belief that yes, I brought my car in, so you should have fixed everything, and then
Yeah.
like they just it doesn't correlate that like oh no, transmission is still only one siloed portion of the car. There's still all these
Hmm.
other things that like need to be fixed, but that shop it did not do all those things. Although they're like, my car is broken. You fixed something. I thought you fixed everything. Like it just kind of
Yeah.
one of those natural mindsets of individuals. So I think that was a wise pivot to happen. So, but obviously, like I mean, you mentioned like 5K in the bank when things started. So I'm assuming there wasn't much in terms of marketing dollars that could be overly produced. And so was it just more like leveraging the current customers that knew about the business and kind of
You
changing
know,
their mindset?
I'm
Or
really glad you brought that up because that's a big thing that I think about a lot when it comes to marketing today. It's just totally different for me from a mindset. And because I was so busy then,
yeah,
I didn't even like there was no car count goal, there was no revenue goal. It was just I need to get through today and be able to leave today by 6 o'clock. Like it's
yeah,
7 o'clock and I need to leave by six. And there are so many people from like what I felt. It was just so overwhelming.
yeah,
Right. There was a lot of things that kind of contributed to that. Um, it was just a very, very overwhelming process. Like, especially about the time we took over in 2018, my dad passed, and that really like brought the overwhelm to the next level. So it was like a lot of just like, okay, I don't need marketing. I remember people calling me, people come to the shop, and they say, "Hey, do you need any help with the marketing? Can I help?" I'm like, "Can I increase your car count?" I'm like, that's the last thing in the entire world that I want right now. You know what I mean? I was just so
yeah,
closed-minded about it because
yeah,
I didn't have anything. I didn't have a staff. I didn't have processes. It was like writing stuff down on note paper. Like I'd have cars come in and say, "This needs this, 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 this," and I'd have all these colored sheets that I would tape to the windshield, and that was my RO dispatch process at the time, which I didn't even know I was developing. It was just
yeah,
like, I just need to get this out of my head because I'd
yeah.
have 15 or 20 cars, which isn't even that much, that I'm trying to remember every single thing that they said that they wanted done and then everything that I found. So I just write it down and like just tape it to the windshield. Okay, now I know what needs to be done and whoever's available, can you just take care of that, right?
Uh-huh.
Um so it was a lot of overwhelm. So the marketing was like that was not even a thought. Like marketing budget? Like what are you talking about? I don't need marketing. Like I have so much work. We're so busy and it's like
Yeah,
looking back now it was like wow, we weren't even like the busy then is our slow month now, right?
yeah. And
Not
but
just like
that but
busy
like
then, but our overwhelmingly busy then is like our like slow month where I'm like, oh my God, what were we doing? What are we doing wrong?
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. But I think at the time, obviously, like prior, so like I mean, I speak with a whole range of owners in terms of like ones just starting up, ones that are very, very successful, multiple locations. But always the tricky one are the ones that are just getting started, and it's like, hey, what can I do to market myself? I'm just like I don't have money, and I'm like, okay, well that makes things obviously much more difficult. But I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned, is focusing internally first on like the processes itself. Because it doesn't matter if you do actually have marketing dollars and marketing money, like, yeah, I'm gonna throw it at this. But like if when they come in, you're like, everyone's just like running around, don't know what's going on. Then
Mm.
customers are getting upset, and then you start getting this early on reputation that like, hey, this shop doesn't know what they're doing. And then now all that dollars that you're investing is just going straight down the drain. So I think in that sense it was a wise decision for yourself. Yes, like yes, you felt busy then, but like there are a lot of things that needed to be fixed internally to then now prepare you to be even
Oh,
busier.
absolutely. And that is such an intelligent answer that was so far beyond my mindset at the time. Like obviously it was just like I can't handle anymore. Like I don't need anymore. I don't want it. I'm definitely not going to spend money to make the phone ring when I already have it ringing so much and that I can't even answer it, you
Yeah.
know. And yeah, try not to pivot it back towards you, but that was like one of the things I thought about with when it comes to that is marketing does get a bad rap because it's not captured, right? And I've just recently kind of come across that realization of there's a lot of great marketing companies that get a bad rap because they want this ROI on return, but they're just not capturing the sale, right?
Mm.
Or you're bringing me bad leads. That's the one I hear a lot, right?
Yeah.
Like all these leads you're bringing me are bad. Like, what do you want? You want them to just like show up with a signed check? Like, what else do you want? They made the phone ring for the vehicle appointment. Like, that's up to you to make that happen. And sure, you're gonna have a few that are just bad
Yeah.
apples, like of course, but
Absolutely.
that's like with all of them. So you can't just use that one excuse on any agency to say like you're just bringing me the wrong leads. Like, what are you talking about? And I think it's because the difference between a word of mouth referral of someone that knows, likes, and trusts you in the community as opposed to like a cold call, someone just calling you off of Google because your ad come up first. That is two totally different people, right? The
Mm.
first one's is just going to come in and drop you the keys, and when you get used to that, people just coming in, they just, oh, just do whatever it takes, and then you have the next call that's like, well, how much is it gonna be? Well, that seems like a lot. Can you look at it for free? Like, you know what I mean? You
Yep.
get these like
Yep.
kind of awkward questions. It really
100%.
throws you off, and you just think you're the bee's knees, right? Yeah, like, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I am so busy. Do you know how many people know me? Like, and you're
Yeah.
gonna question my process? It's so close-minded, and I was there. Like, I totally understand that thought process, right? Like, I really thought we were the busiest shop in town. I really thought we did the best because people would just come in like, and then we had such a great reputation with the old owner and like the new process. And I was younger, and they were like, "Oh, you're like, you're doing the right things," and I was like, "Oh yeah, look at me go," right? And
Yep.
as you start expanding a little more, you realize like, oh my God, I was just so close-minded. I had the blinders on, you know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
And
No,
so like without the
100%.
process, and you start getting these new leads, and I start realizing like, oh, maybe it isn't the people, maybe it's us. Maybe people just aren't willing just because the name is shifting gears and my name's Jimmy Purdy that they're going to come in and just spend whatever I tell them to spend, you know? Kind of a blow to the ego a little bit, but I think it's needed, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A
And then
long-winded answer, but
no, no, I think that's a great answer, right on point. That again, obviously we have a whole range of listeners, and if you are still listening, I mean, please subscribe or like if you haven't already. That helps just get more audience to see more people in the industry. That's what's most important to me is just like giving more people voices, and the more that people are able to comment and interact with each other, I think the industry will just continue to elevate itself. I won't use the word lift there, to self brand. But to shift gears slightly there, I have one more question in terms of when you started. Because I always think it's unique when someone is working at a shop, acquires the shop, and now the voice changes at the shop. Because now it's not the old owner, and like you
Mm.
yourself are the new voice. So what was that transition like from your employees, your team, seeing you as the leader? Like how did you kind of shift their perception? Like, hey, I'm not just now your peer, like at a friend level, like I'm your boss,
Mm.
and it kind of things need to change. So like, how did you balance that?
We're digging it deep now.
Yeah.
They call that, what do they call that? Owner goodwill. And I remember writing up I remember doing a lot of research on how to quantify the owner goodwill. Like
Mm,
how do I pay him for something that doesn't exist but it's still important? You know what I
yep.
mean? And that
Yep.
like that goodwill thing. Well, we'll just get right to it. So day one, everybody quit. Um, so it was me and him because all the everybody just left once they
Wow.
yeah, and it wasn't okay. It wasn't day one. I give it like a week. So about
I
first
mean,
week
that sure feels like day one though.
first week went well, well enough. It was more of like trying to get things organized and cleaned and change some things around, and then it was like Monday or Tuesday. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's like, hey, we had a meeting. I took everyone out to lunch. I said, "What do you guys want with this shop? Like, what do you like? What's the goal here?" And of course, everyone's just in that headspace of like everything's changed and not, like so. No one was really entertaining. But the
Yep.
one thing I remember bringing up was like, when do we want to start? Right? Like, do you want to start at 10 o'clock and be here till 7? Do you want to start at 7? Do you want to start like, and we all had agreed 8 o'clock. So that was like, I made sure we made the agreement to all start at 8. Well, Tuesday rolls around. Monday, everyone shows up at 9 o'clock, right? 9:30. Okay. Well, I thought we said 8. So Tuesday, 8:30 rolls by, 8:45 rolls by. So I was just like, I sent out a text. I'm like, you know what, you guys just go and take the day off. Let's start again Wednesday. Get a nice early start, and I'll have everything lined up ready to go. Two guys came down, grabbed their toolboxes, and left because of that text message. And of course, that was the biggest mistake I made in my whole life.
Mm,
And now I realize that was probably the best thing I could have done. But it took
absolutely.
many years of like of regret thinking about that. I'm like, was that the right thing to do? Like years of like maybe I could have handled that differently. But anyway, they all left. The one answering the phone was his daughter. She left. So it was just me and him, and I had to kind of start from square one. And that's the whole process of like, oh man, I'm in a really bad position right now, and so the next hire that I need to make needs to be as cheap as possible because I don't have the
Yeah.
money. And that's
Yep.
where that whole like
Yeah, yeah,
negativity
yeah,
start.
that
Yes,
snowball, that
it
spiral
did.
starts,
Yes, and it was
and that's
like,
so hard as like an early on business owner, right? Like again, there's so many different stress points that you get introduced to that you had no idea even existed, and again, things like, hey, I'm gonna make a decision where I think, yeah, I want the business to shift this way, and then everyone's like, nope, I'm out, and like that would be immensely stressful. And it's like how. Like I'm thankfully like you as a former technician at least have experience where you're like, yeah, I can at least get some work done to get revenue through the finish line myself, granted not at the level that you at the capacity that you want. But some owners step in terms of like they cannot displace a technician. And so that becomes immensely stressful in the kind of the strategy that they need to have in there. And so, but I think
yeah,
it's something that the owners need to prepare for when they
I
take them.
don't, I, because my thought is that that's the reality. Like that's how you take over a shop. Like I don't see it any other way because I don't know, right? So
Yep.
I see other owners taking over with no automotive background. I'm like, I don't know how you're gonna do that because I just assume that's the process everyone has to go through, right? So I'm like,
Yep.
how do you? So what if everybody quit? And they're like, why would they all quit? I'm like, because that's what happens. And it's like, no, that's not everyone's reality, right? That was just my reality. But I
Yeah.
look at it that way. It's like, how do you step in and take over? You can't, but obviously they look at things different. They hire for with a sense of purpose instead of just having a warm body. And
Yep.
for me, it was like I just need a warm body. And I honestly thought like people were gonna be my least worry. Like, oh, I'll be able to find people to help. Like, no problem. Like super naive. I was like, oh, people, like there's so many people that want to do this job. Like,
Yeah.
I'll be able to find like no problem. So there was obviously the anxiety, the stress of like, oh, these guys have been here, they know the shop and all that kind of stuff, and now they're leaving. But I'm like, it's not that big a deal. Like, I'll be able to find somebody. Like, it's kind of like stress, but not at the same time. Cause like,
Yep.
and then I was like, even at the end of the day, I can just do it myself. I just
Yep.
do everything myself, and I can make all the money, and it's fine. Like, so I think you have to be a little ignorant to like to make it work. You got to be kind of uneducated and ignorant to make do like in the process that I had. Because if I knew what I know now, going back then, I'd have been out. Like, nope. Like I see the mountain I gotta climb, right? Like if you don't see it, right, you just take one step in front of the other and just keep like, I'll just keep walking. Eventually
Yeah.
it'll get better, right? But
Yeah.
if you know like how steep it's gonna be and like how long it's gonna be, I don't know if I would have done it this.
There's that blissful ignorance,
Yeah,
but that's
blissful
where
ignorance.
I
Yes.
think that's where it's so crucial now for people. Like, I mean, there's so many different coaching groups and coaches out there, but also like not even like necessarily a coach, but like someone like yourself that has that experience and is more than happy to share that with someone if they just ask.
No,
And so I
absolutely.
think that's what's so interesting about like this platform for individuals. This is like, hey, like hopefully I'm introducing people to just like different types of owners because no owner is going to be like you're going to perfectly resonate with them and be like, oh yeah, that's the person I need to call.
Mm.
But more than likely, the odds are high that like there will be some point in time where like as I interview a bunch of different people that you'll be like, that owner is like, it's so close to my experience and maybe their style of how they speak is like, I just want to ask them a few questions about what I'm going through. I think they might be able to help me. And I'm hoping that like people are starting to get the courage to do that. If, because I mean, obviously coaches are expensive. And when you get early on, you don't have money. I understand that's a problem, but why not get a shortcut into some of those pain and struggles, or at least like be aware of like, hey, this could be coming based on your situation that I'm understanding, but this is how I would maybe prepare for that. And that stress
That's an
can
inter.
now
Oh yeah.
diminish.
I've learned there's in my experience with coaching that there's two different people out there. Some people really need that constant backing, and some people can take tidbits and then hold themselves accountable. I think that's the big thing is being able to like hold your own self accountable. Because there's one thing to sit here and listen to us have this conversation, and I don't know if there's any knowledge in it, but maybe there's something in there that'll help somebody along the way,
Yeah.
right? And hopefully, and that's why I like doing these things as well because any little bit of stress that I can help, and the more people we can keep in this industry is really important to me. And there's a bad stigma, and it is an awesome business that we provide. It's a service that the community needs, and we're keeping people safe. We're keeping families going to their soccer games, going to church, going to work. It's an important transportation industry is a very important thing. So
Yeah.
like I really like doing that. But when it comes to the coaching, if you can't hold yourself accountable, then you can listen to all the podcasts, you can read all the books, and it's just going to go in and one out, in one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
For others, getting in a coaching program, it's the camaraderie and being able to constantly have that constant reinforcement that really helps them. So I've had a lot of conversations about coaching and how, man, why are you spending, $1,500 or $2,000 a month on that? All that information is free and it's out there. Well, I mean, not everybody can absorb it and like use it the same, So
Yep.
I don't like when they say coaching is not in sense a waste of money, but it's just not it is not for everyone. Some people, and I'm probably on the borderline of that. I'm on the edge of like if I can be held accountable by somebody else, I get to a point where I start kind of like, all right, that's enough. Like I don't need like I'm ready to hear something else, and I have that
Yeah.
ADD that kicks in. Like okay,
Yeah.
I got what I needed, I heard what I needed to hear, and we're on the process. And now I'm like, now I want to go a different direction, but you keep pushing me this way, and I don't like it. So it starts pushing me against the grain, and I'm out. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that are like that because I think in the industry you have to have a little bit of the ADD or the ADHD to like do this job.
Yeah. And
I
and
think
and like
I think we're all wired a little bit like that.
and you wanted to start like you started a shop for a reason. You wanted to be the boss, and like you didn't want to have that other person kind of telling you what to do. It's kind of that nice thing now that you're the owner. Like, oh, there's no one telling. I
Y-
get to make the rules and make the
You know what's
destination.
interesting about that is I've never really had that thought of like I want to be the end all be all. I
Mm.
really and I only said it one time and I think I should like dive back into that a little bit. And it was more because I just wanted to do it. I wanted to do it better. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it better because I wanted to be the top of the mountain. It was just like I see the potential of this shop. It's doing a really good job. A lot of people in the community like it, but we're missing a lot. And there's a lot of people that are coming back upset. And I think we can do it better. So I think my goal was just to be more of a general manager. I just wanted to manage the shop better.
Mm.
I didn't really want to be like that, right? The top and I
Yeah.
think I have that issue still to this day with what's the word for it? Imposter syndrome,
Yep. No,
right?
100%. Yep.
And it's a real thing, right? And you're just like,
Absolutely.
dude, just do what you got to do, right? Like, and I'll do what I got to do. and then we all like make money together. And it's like that's the worst leadership mentality that you could possibly have. Like, because everyone's looking up for someone to like direct. And I'm like, no, you just stay in your lane, I'll stay in my lane. Like I was a wrestler in high school. That was like that's my team, right? Like I do my thing, he does his thing, he does his thing, and it's like and then we all win. And so like the whole team thing really is really hard for me to like click together.
Yeah, but I see so much experience rooted back. I mean, yeah, I mean, I play a lot of sports. I don't know how some owners have played sports, some owners haven't, but I think that is such a unique dynamic to be able to understand that your business is like you're forming this team
Mm.
of people that are like hopefully following like greater mission that you implemented with them. And when you have that, like I mean, you can see it just in any sport. It's like yeah, that team that is working so well. Maybe they don't have the most talented individuals, but it's like you can tell that they work so much better as a team that that's why they can execute at such a higher level than like oh they have this there's this one star player in on this team, but it's like yeah, maybe one game they did really well, but like over the longevity of a season, over the longevity of years, will that take place? Probably not. I mean,
Can't they can't, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like because burnout and
Exactly, like a view that's like I feel like I'm carrying everybody all the time, and
mm,
like you can only do that for so long before you fall back where everyone else is, and like now you're one of them. So yeah,
yeah, the burnout's a real thing and constantly looking to see if the grass is always greener and and then not having the support, and like back to the coaching thing, like having a bunch of other shops that you can lean on, like is that support system. But I think you're right too. Like a lot of these interviews that you and I both do, like all these people are more than willing to have a conversation with you if you reach out. And I think that's missed. Like you don't have to just listen to this and then go about your day. Like reach out, right? Like if
yeah,
there's something that like, hey, I want to dig into that a little bit more. Like, dude, that's why we're doing this right now. Like I'm not like you're not paying me for this right now. Like
yep, yep.
this
This is
is
the
like
first time we've met
right. Like this is just
and spoken.
information that we're just putting out there. And if there's something like you said that sticks or like resonates with you, you
Yeah.
just gotta like reach out. Facebook, Messenger, like there's so many ways to connect. And um yeah, and it's great information. And I don't think it's the end all be all. I think too many times we go looking for the silver bullet instead of trying to pick up golden nuggets, right?
Mhm.
Like, how do I fix the shop? Right. And I remember there was a story of this guy I met at Apex a few years back, and he had a shop in Florida. Seemed like a decent guy, had his wife there, and we got to talking and like, so what's, how's everything looking? He's like, oh, we're about a month from shutting down. Like, well, why are you here then? Like, you should be at your shop. Well, I'm hoping I can learn some stuff here to keep it going. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Like, you can't just come here for 2 days and then like attain this knowledge and then go back and like, oh, I'm gonna fix my shop.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just really interesting, but I totally understood the mentality because that's what you go looking for.
Yeah.
Whether it's marketing, whether it's coaching, whether it's you get in touch with these companies and you think they're just going to fix everything. Like, all right, you know what? I'm ready to spend a little bit of money. And you spend this money and you think it's going to be like the fix. And it's like that's barely just the tip of the iceberg. You're just like just getting started. But I was there too. It's like, you know what? I think I'll finally ask for some help. So then you pay the money, but you don't get the results. So then you get upset and you're like, dude, what am I paying you for? And there's just such a disconnect. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's something that you've picked up that you've had clients that maybe you've had to kind of like part ways with, but I totally understand that process. And it's the same when people coming in the shop. So you know what? I've always done my own work on my cars. It's like as soon as they say that, I know it's going to be a negative experience.
Yeah.
It's like because
100%.
their expectations is so high.
Yeah.
And sure, I'd love to meet that expectation, but some of it's just unreasonable. You have an unreasonable expectation. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not you. Like, I'm not like that. We're a business.
Yeah.
I can't just throw an oil filter on there for you because it only takes you 30 seconds to put it on. That's not how this works. And if
Yeah.
I have to explain that to you, then we're never going to be on the same page.
Yep. I 100% agree. Well, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today.
Of course.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's been a wealth of knowledge, and you've been very humble in presenting it. But yeah, obviously, you have been able to get through that struggle, get through the mountain, and reaping some really great success in terms of within your community. Obviously, expansion doesn't happen magically, just like oh, it happens at no, like it required success in the business to be able to expand. So congratulations on that. I know you're going to continue to crush it. But as one
The
parting,
struggle continues.
oh well, I guess you're giving yourself a few more
Enjoy this,
struggles.
embrace the suck.
Yeah, but as a parting gift for individuals, what is it? Maybe one go-to book. I know it's always hard to pigeonhole it down to one, but what is one go-to book you're like, hey, if you read this, you will be kind of a good step up on your way.
I got two that I just I can't decide on.
I'll let you share two.
Oh man, I get two?
Yeah,
Damn, I'm
I'll give you
special.
two. I'll give you two.
So of course I have to go with the E-Myth.
Yep.
And I
Yeah,
just
I
recently
have that
got
on.
the E-Myth Mastery.
I don't remember what shelf it's
I
on,
mean,
but
you have to do the E-Myth. Like
yeah.
that has to be on there. The other one that's probably not as well known is This Book Will Make You Dangerous by Trip Lanier. Um,
I haven't heard of that one.
it is a fantastic book. The guy's a life coach, Trip Lanier. Excuse me, and I really connect in the way he speaks and in the way he has his mentality. He's very down to earth. It's just, yes. And it's called This Book Will Make You Dangerous because it goes through kind of more psychological and how to deal with your mental stresses. And it's got absolutely nothing to do with automotive or anything. It's just how to be a better human being. Guy was a Navy SEAL. So it really connected with me. And I use a lot of the stuff and I go back and read it a lot, and it's just like you're having a conversation with this guy while you're reading the book. He's got a
Yeah.
podcast as well and some other stuff, but yeah, I really have to recommend that one because it helps the anxiety part of it, and it's like you just go read it and you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I love that. And pretty, I mean, you sold me on Navy SEAL. Pretty much anytime they're like a Navy SEAL and they wrote a book, I'm like, I gotta read it. It's gonna be a fantastic book. So
Well,
I
it's
gotta
like
read
all
it.
the master classes, right? And they got master class with Jocko Will.
Yep, Jocko. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. His master class is like fantastic. He does a really good job with that too. So
Yep.
yeah, those guys just know how to lead a team, and they've been in like the most stressful situations that you and I
Absolutely.
probably could never even comprehend, right? So I think they can give you a few pointers.
I think so. Yeah, I think you can learn from it too. Well, Jimmy, for those that again want hopefully reach out to you, want to reach out to you, what are the best ways to find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much all over Facebook. The Gearbox Podcast is on Spotify, Apple. You can find that pretty much on any of your except for iHeartRadio. I'm not on iHeart. But all the other ones you can find me. But yeah, you
Yeah.
can look me up on Facebook, Jimmy Purdy. Reach out.
Perfect.
The ASOG group, changing the industry group, all the different Facebook groups that are out there.
Yeah, there are a lot. We have one ourselves too, but yeah, just I think it's important to just communicate with the industry, find others that are like yourself, get some help when you need it, because I think everyone at any point in time
Join
needs
those
it.
Facebook groups.
Yeah,
In yeah, all the different ones that there's so many and they'll start piling together. But I know a lot of people try to stay away from Facebook because of all the negativity. But if you can just get yourself involved in these Facebook groups, there is so much knowledge. Take a lot of it with kind of a grain of salt. There's some out there that are like, but you get enough of them, and there's so much knowledge you can get out of
yep.
those things.
100%. I think it's the most powerful thing Facebook honestly does is
Hmm.
are the groups that are there. But again, Jimmy, thank you so much for your time today. And those listening, please, if you haven't already liked and subscribed, please do so. But I'm Kelsey Ostrom with Lift Auto Repair Marketing. We'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.